Hello, awesome mindsetters. This is yours truly, your favorite show ever, the best learning show, Learn Extra, live on Saturday with me, AB, and of course, Aslam. It is an A-squared team, so Team A is on the building. Aslam, how are you?
AB, huh?
Yes.
AB.
and Aslam.
AB, huh?
And
That's
Aslam.
your new name now. Oh, wow, nice.
Oh, my name is Abram.
Good. I'm great. I'm ready for action.
You don't sound great. Loosen up.
Yeah, just
Listen
now
up.
you'll see me loosening up just now.
All right.
I need to get warmed up a bit.
All
I'm
right.
still suffering from jet lag.
Oh, you'll be fine. You'll be strong. But anyway, what are we doing today?
Today we're doing revision of paper 2.
All right.
We are going to go through at least one question from each section in paper 2.
All right. I heard that you went to UK to see your grandson. How was it?
Granddaughter, yeah. Just great. My heart is sore because I had to leave her and come back.
Wow. Well, anyway, it's always a good time to be with family.
Yeah, 100%.
Nice
Nothing
one.
better than family.
So true. Well, mindset is talking about family. This is our family. You are our family. You can join us on Facebook. Facebook page is facebook.com/learnextra. Join the Team Mindset family. Let's chat more, ask some questions, and help one another on the page. Follow us on Twitter @learnextra. I know that a lot of you are on Twitter, so let's get tweeting. We'll follow you back. And lastly, download your notes all for free on learnextra.co.za/live. Otherwise, the first link of the notes is posted on our Facebook page. So Team A-squared is in the building, and let's learn more.
Thanks, Abram. Welcome, Mindsetters. Great to be back with you. Hope you didn't miss me too much. We're going to go through paper 2. Just before we get into the questions, let's just recap in our minds. I find many learners get to the exams and they don't know what sections are in paper 1 and what sections are in paper 2. Please ask your teachers to give you what is called the exam guideline 2011. Exam guideline 2011. It tells you what is in paper 1, what is in paper 2, and also it gives you the details of what is examinable and what is not. Textbooks have a lot of information. Some of the stuff is to complete the section to make sense, but some of the things are not examinable. So you need to consult that document. It is not a trade secret. It is something that you, the learner, should have in your possession. Make sure that your teachers give it to you. Please make sure that you have it. Now, what is then paper 2? Paper 2 starts with responses to the environment, which is broken up into 2. One is for plants and one is for animals. Plant responses deals with plant growth substances, auxins, and the like. And we look at plant defense mechanisms. How do plants protect themselves? We then move on to animals, which is also divided into 2. On the one hand, we have the endocrine system, which deals with the hormones. And on the other hand, we have the nervous coordinating system, which deals with the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves, the eye, the ear, the sensory organs. We then move to, still in response to the environment, thermoregulation in humans. That means what do we do to change conditions in our body on a hot day and a cold day. We then move to reproduction. Reproduction is basically divided into 3 parts. One is reproductive strategies, followed by reproduction in plants, followed by reproduction in humans. Thereafter, it's environment. The first part of environment is population ecology. The second part of environment is social organization. And the third part of environment is community structure. And the last part is succession. So these are the 4 things. And also in between all of that, you have how do we humans impact on all these delicate balances across the line. In other words, in population, in social organization, in a community structure, etc. How do we contribute towards it to succeed, or how do we contribute to its demise to destroy what is there in nature? So those are, I felt it's important that you know what is going on there, so you know you're on the same page. We start today with some multiple choice questions, guys. Multiple choice questions are key, and remember, if you follow the trend from 2010 onwards, you'll find that the multiple choice questions are increasing in number. We are now plus minus on about 10 multiple choice questions in paper 1 and paper 2. That gives you a whopping 20 marks. So it's important to know how to answer multiple choice questions. Secondly, we have the terms, 1-term answers. That's also important to know. And then the third one generally is the multiple matching or the ordinary matching. I've chosen two today, the multiple choice and the multiple matching. Now, both these sections also lean towards terminology. You have to know your terminology to get ahead in life science. Your terminology is key. Remember, section A, guys, counts total 50 marks. That's 1/3 of your paper. So keep your head screwed on the right way, focus on what's happening, and use those past papers, whatever past papers you can get, your class test, your first term exam, your second term exam, trial papers from other provinces, whatever you can get, you're going to be benefiting in the end. Let's look at the instruction first of all. Let's say various options are provided as possible answers to the following questions. Choose the answer and write down only the letter A to D next to the question number. Now, guys, this is important. You cannot write a word there. You will not get the credit for that. The instruction is clear. You must only write down the letter, so keep that in mind. The first question says 1.1, 1.2, and 3 are based on this diagram. What does this diagram give us? It gives us a plant. It gives us light coming from one side, and we see that the stem is leaning towards that light. Question, the bending of the stem is caused by... What causes this bending? Cell elongation, oxygen distribution in the stem, wind. So in other words, we want to know why is the stem bending that way. And this is a nice type of multiple choice where you're getting a multiple choice within a multiple choice. So you're having your A, B, C, D, and within that you got 1, 2, 3, 4. And they give you a variety of options to choose from. Now, elimination is key in this question. So let's look at what we are doing. Let's leave about what we know in terms of oxygens and so on. Let's look at, this is the box. There's the box there. It's covered on this side. Can wind cause this plant to bend that way? Not a chance. So first of all, we strike out wind. This is known as elimination. Remember, there's normally only one correct answer. So it is actually easier to find the incorrect answer. So this is what I mean by saying eliminate. Eliminate the ridiculous. Eliminate the thing that's definitely wrong. So 3, that means, is out. So we go to A, B, C, D. This one has 3, so it can't be that one. This one has 3, it can't be that one. So can you see what I'm saying? Now you only have to choose between B and C. Okay? Sorry, we didn't even look at water here. Water is also not in this equation, so we scratch out that. So that also goes away, and you're left with the answer C. I didn't see the water part, sorry, excuse me for that. So can you see what I'm saying, guys? You eliminate the ridiculous, your answer becomes easy. But now let's look at the theoretical background. If you knew your work, you know that oxygen is what is causing that, because oxygens move from the light side to the non-illuminated side. Oxygens are going to move that side. So that means this is correct, the distribution of oxygens in the stem. And what does oxygen do there? Oxygen causes a stimulation of cell division and cell elongation. That's it. So this is also correct. So one is you need to know your work. Can you see just in one multiple choice question, we have actually discussed how a plant bends towards light when it's given light from one direction. If a plant, let's look at it again. If a plant is receiving light from one side only, or unilateral light, and you thought this was just a multiple choice question, look at the work that's coming out of this multiple choice question. Then oxygens move to the other side. Which side? The dark side. Which side? The non-illuminated side. What does it do there? It stimulates cell division and cell elongation. So what about that? So this side grows faster than the other side. So what about that? The stem bends towards the light. We say that the stem is positively phototropic. That's the whole concept on its own, just in one multiple choice question. 1.2, an advantage of bending of the stem in the direction of the light is why? In other words, you're saying, what's so good about this? To facilitate transpiration, to expose the leaf to light for photosynthesis, to limit transpiration, prevent lengthening of the plant. Firstly, let's look at what's ridiculous. Anywhere in this let's say, facilitate transpiration. Will a plant want to facilitate transpiration? What is this transpiration? Transpiration is a loss of water, isn't it? So will a plant want to facilitate that? Not a chance. Out. Limit transpiration? Yes, it will. A plant will want to, but will this limit transpiration? Not at all, because it's moving towards the light. And if you know your grade 11 work, increasing light will increase the amount of transpiration. So that's not good either. And so that must go out. To prevent the lengthening of the plant, is this plant lengthening? It is still lengthening, but it is bending at the same time. So it can't be preventing the lengthening. So you're left again with B, and that is one of the main reasons for phototropism. Phototropism going towards photosynthesis. The plant is bending towards the light so it can get maximum light for photosynthesis. So your answer is B. Remember, your answer is not expose the leaves. Your answer is B. And the first one was C. 1.3, sorry. I'm too used to the papers, so that would be 1.1.3. Here it's 1.3, right? Abram? I'm getting confused a little bit.
I see.
The stem in the diagram shows the response as, now this is easy. First of all, what physical factor was used in this diagram? You guessed it right, light, okay? So, was gravity mentioned here? Not at all. So, geotropism, out. So you're left with 2. Now we need to know whether it's positive phototropism or negative phototropism. Did it bend towards the light? Yes, it did. So it has to be positive phototropism. I'm hoping you're getting a picture, guys, of the elimination process. This is key in answering a multiple choice question, guys. And at the same time, I'm hoping you realize that we've done a whole section. Next question, 1.4. This is now not related to what we were talking about. Say, which one of the following does not play a role, a direct role in geotropism? Does not. Notice the word not is in caps. Not always will the examiner put it in caps, but in this particular question, it is in caps. So you've got to be careful when you're reading. Again, another strategy. Read the questions. Sometimes it tells you when you want something and sometimes not. The word not is there. So be careful. Which one does not play a direct role in geotropism? And I just mentioned now, geotropism has to do with gravity. So gravity can't be the answer because we want the one that does not. So gravity is out. Is oxygen involved? Oxygen is definitely involved, so that's out. Cell elongation takes place. So your answer is B. That one there was easy anyway because water is not involved in geotropism. When we're talking about water, it would be hydrotropism. Great. I'm enjoying myself. I'm hoping you too, AB. AB?
I am.
Are you?
I am.
Good. This is also another favorite. Guys, here there's 2 marks for each question. Why? Normally in matching, you only get 1 mark. In terminology, you get 1 mark. But in multiple matching, you're getting 2 marks. Why? Because they're giving you something, they're giving you 2 things. You need to make a choice. And your choices are wide. It could be one of them, it could be both of them, it could be neither one of them. So it's a story to, and the word, this instruction is stock standard. It's always like this in a paper. Your answer must be either A only, B only, both A and B, or none. Yeah? We made it easy. You know, before they say neither A nor B, so it's a lot to write there. If you write none, it means the same thing. So that is the 4 choices that you have. All right? Again, column 1 gives you something, and column 2 gives you the A and B. You need to match it. 2.1, one end in contact with a membrane in the ear. One end in contact with a membrane in the ear. Okay, so you got your hammer, anvil. Now, which are the 3 bones that we're talking about here? We've got the hammer, anvil, and stirrup, hairs. Malleus, incus, and stapes. Hairs. These are the 3 bones. The first one is the hammer, the second one is anvil, and the third one is the stirrup. Now, look at where the anvil is. The anvil is between the stirrup and the hammer. So the anvil has on either side a bone, no membrane. Whereas the hammer is attached to the tympanic membrane and the stirrup to the oval window. So our answer obviously in this case would be A only. 2.2 plays a role in cooling down the body. Cooling down the body. Sweating, yes. Shivering, no. That's easy. I'm not even going to discuss that one. An exocrine gland, a gland that secretes its secretions in a duct. Thyroid, no, you know that the thyroid falls under endocrine system. Pancreas, yes it is, and we'll discuss that when we get there, why it is exocrine. No photoreceptors, it will be the blind spot only in that case. Part of the epidermis of the skin, blood vessels, sensory organs, blood vessels in the epidermis, no. Sensory organs, a sensory organ, not a sensory receptor, but a sensory organ, can't be either one. So that will be the story then. Get, guys, earns you a small break, AB.
Thank you so much. Well, you do something good, you get good marks, the right correct answers, and you get a break. Mindsetters, welcome to also the Mindsetters that have joined us on the page and also on Twitter. Actually, talking about Twitter, here's a tweet before that ad break from Brian JD. Brian says, let's see what's ridiculous. Ha ha ha, Aslam is funny, my favorite life science teacher by far. Thank you so much, Len Extra. Thank you so much, Brian. And to all the Mindsetters that have missed Aslam, here he is. I brought him all the way from UK. Stay tuned because we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, Matrix. Now, I have a very interesting question on Facebook from Gabelo DJ KP Mpatlele. I'm saying this because he's our fan also, our family member. He's asking me a simple question. I don't have another term to use because the other mindset said, let's see what's ridiculous. Katlo, that's what he said. So here's a question from Gabelo. Should I tweet you at Len Extra, Abram? Should I tweet you? Maybe Aslam can answer that. But otherwise, if you have any questions, Mindsetters, feel free to let us know on facebook.com/LenExtra or on Twitter @LenExtra.
Thanks, AB. Welcome back, guys. I'm hoping you had a nice break. I'm hoping you enjoyed the little time that you had off. And I'm hoping that you have a pen in your hand and a book in your hand. And at the same time, you're looking at the notes on the computer if you have it. Please, guys, use this session. Your exams are here. Trial exams are no more counting. By the way, I received an SMS yesterday from the Department of Education because I'm on a governing body. They said, dear governing body member, there are 33 days left for the final matric exam. So that means today should be around 32.
Sure.
32 days left, guys. So there's not a lot of time. You may think it's a lot of time.
There's no time.
Time flies, guys. You know. Guys, so let's carry on with this. Responsible for osmoregulation. Oopsie. Okay. Osmoregulation in the renal tubules. Okay. The renal, anything to do with the kidney. Osmoregulation is the control of water. Can you see I'm underlining the keywords? That's another skill that you need to have. As you're going through things, underline the keywords. Start doing it physically. By the time you come end of the year, it must be mentally. When you look at a question, your eye must pick up the keywords. And the question here is aldosterone and ADH. These are two hormones from the endocrine system that you had to study. Aldosterone controls the amount of salt, and ADH, the amount of water. Now, osmoregulation speaks to the amount of water that we have in the blood. Now, you know from grade 11 that the more solutes you add in water, the lower its water potential. The less solutes it has, the higher its water potential. Why am I saying all this? Because that would tell you that both aldosterone and ADH play an important role in osmoregulation. Obviously, if the blood retains more salt, it will have a lower water potential, and therefore it will absorb more, reabsorb more water. Whereas if it has less salt, it will have a higher water potential, and therefore it will not reabsorb too much water. And ADH directly controls the permeability of those tubules spoken there, the renal tubules, more specifically the proximal convoluted tubule and the collecting tubules especially, sorry, the distal convoluted tubule and the collecting tubules especially. And the more water that we need, or rather when we're dehydrating, more ADH is secreted so we can reabsorb more water. In that sentence, by the way, is a whole explanation of negative feedback. What is negative feedback, you ask? Negative feedback is when the stimulus results in an opposite response. What was the problem? Too little water. What is the response? We reabsorb more water. So that's where we are with that question there. Okay, so both of them there. Lens of the eye is too convex. Too round is another term used there. Remember, round and convex go together. The proper word is convex, though we use convex as the proper word. Hypermetropia, long-sightedness. Astigmatism. Hypermetropia or hyperopia and astigmatism. Let's first explain that. Hyperopia, hypermetropia is when we can see things that are far, but we can't see things that are close. And astigmatism is when there's unequal curvature on the lens, or on the cornea rather, so we cannot see at different spots differently. And this one is talking about too convex. When the lens is more convex, the refraction power of the lens increases and the focal length decreases. And because of that, it can't be either one of these two. When the lens is too convex, we would be short-sighted or myopic. Okay? Used by plants as defense mechanism from being eaten by animals. A, thorns, and B, chemicals. The answer is both A and B. So guys, this is how you answer this particular question. There's 8 marks there, and this has been the trend in the past in the final exam as well. There are 8 marks for each of these questions. So 8 times 2 is 16, 10 times 2 is 20. That's 36 marks, guys. 36 marks just in multiple choice questions, and this one here. And if you add in between 1.2 normally in the exam is the one-word answers, then you get another 8 to 10 marks there. So there's a lot of marks there, so you can't waste it. Abram,
I have some questions for you, Aslam.
Yeah, let's go for them.
Alphas Jerry Maluk says, what if I write A and not A only? Will I be penalized for that?
No, you can write just A, it's fine. You can write just, let me go back up. You can write it just like this. A, it's fine. B, A and B, and none. These are all acceptable in the exam. They are all accepted because we can see that that means A only, B only.
All right.
Do not, however, write it in such a way that you're confusing the marker.
All right. Here's the last one from Baptiste. Baptiste says, why is it incorrect to say A, plants grow towards the light, and B, if a root is placed horizontally, it will bend towards gravity? Why is it incorrect to say that?
Why is it incorrect to say?
Plants grow towards the light.
Plants grow more towards the light. Yeah.
And secondly, if a root is placed horizontally, it will bend towards gravity.
Okay. The first one is, when you're talking of the plant, you're saying the whole plant. It's wrong. The whole plant doesn't. It's the stem that bends towards the light. Okay. Was that Baptiste?
Yes.
His surname is not Lamarck by any chance, eh?
No, it's Mwako.
Okay. All right. Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck, eh? Okay. No, when you're saying the plant bends towards the light, that means the whole plant is bending towards the light. That's incorrect, obviously. The stem bends towards the light if it is exposed from one side only. The second one, I'm having a problem with your question. You're saying that if the plant
If a root is placed horizontally,
yeah,
it will bend towards gravity.
No, that's correct. There's nothing wrong with the second one. If the whole plant, actually you should say if the plant is placed horizontally, but if the root is also placed horizontally, it doesn't matter. Even if you just take the whole root and you bend it in a plant and you place it horizontally for some reason, it will still bend down towards gravity because the root is positively geotropic.
All right.
Any more?
Last one. From Abdul. Abdul Azim Mohammed says, Mr. Aslam, could you please explain the concept of apical dominance?
Okay, what's him? Abdul.
Abdul.
Abdul, apical dominance. Let's break that into two things. I love this, Abraham, by the way, when people are asking questions, it's even more valuable than the questions we have, because then we are answering their questions and not what we're choosing. Maybe they know these ones, so this is good. I want you guys to ask the questions, guys. It's important that you ask the questions because we can have interaction. And when you're asking the questions, thousands of people are benefiting because they may have the same questions, they may not have asked the question. Let's look at this word, apical and dominance. Apical in a plant means the growing tip. This could be in the root, it could be in the stem. Dominance means to dominate. Now, if we are here in the studio, A, B, and I are in the studio, and right now, for the larger portion of the show, Aslam dominates because I'm talking. And while I'm talking, do you hear A, B speaking? No, he doesn't. If I ask him a question, he can answer, or when I stop, then he starts. So while I am talking, he doesn't talk. So Aslam dominates. But when Aslam stops, then AB can take over. Now now you can't write Abdul. You cannot write that in an exam. You get 0 marks for that, right? That's not the answer. I'm trying to explain to all of you guys to understand this. There's a lot of things. Some people, you say apical dominance, right? Apical dominance means whatever the textbook says, and then we regurgitate it. It's no sense doing all of that if we do not understand what is happening. And this is why I'm using this example. Now, let's go further with that. So apical dominance, if this is a plant, and this is the growing tip, we say that as long as the growing tip is there, growth is restricted to this growing tip. That means this growing tip will keep growing up. Why is this important? So that the plant can go as high up as possible for light. While that is there, it inhibits lateral growth. From the auxiliary buds. There's auxiliary buds on the stem as we're going along. So these auxiliary buds will not grow. But if we decide, Abraham, to cut that growing tip, if we take that growing tip out, what has happened? It's as though Aslam stopped talking. So you can start talking. So if we take out that apical bud, there was a security guard, the apical bud. As long as he's there, nobody, he's suppressing everything else. If you remove the apical bud, then, oops, forget, rubber. Get rid of the rubber. Then you, all right. Then you're going to get side growth. Lateral buds will grow. Now, why is this important in agriculture or in your own home? If you want to form a little fence of plants outside your house, which we call a hedge, you will have to plant the plants next to each other and regularly cut off the top. As you're cutting off the top, what's happening? The plant grows towards each other. They start shooting to the sides. Lateral branches grow, and they form a thick, lush, fence-like border outside your house. So that is how apical dominance can be used in our homes. I'm hoping, Abdul, that answered your question. Should you have any further queries, put it through again, and we'll come back to it again a little later. And talking about the plants, let's go now to the first question, and that's on the plants. The graph below shows the growth response of roots and shoots to auxins. Look again the keywords that I'm highlighting there. Applied at different concentrations. Study the graph, then answer the questions that follow. This is adapted from last year's KZN prep paper. Graph to show the growth response. Again, look at the graph. It has a heading there on top. It has an x-axis heading, a y-axis heading, and it's giving you the units where units are necessary, and we have intervals that are equidistant apart. Okay, so what's happening here? And they have a key. The roots are the solid line, and the dotted line is the shoots. Okay, so they're giving you the story there. Give the concentration of auxins that is best for shoot development. So obviously, which line must we look at? We must look at the dotted line, and where the dotted line was the highest. And we go there, and we come down. Our answer should be 1.8 parts per million. 1.8 is the answer. Parts per million is the units that you've got to use. A farmer wants his plants to develop large, healthy root systems. What concentration of auxins should he use when spraying his crops? What does he want? Healthy roots. Healthy roots. And what concentration must he look at? Now again, you've got to go to the roots. You're going to look at the peak of the roots that's around there. Around there. Solid line coming down, 0.6. It should be the answer. Let's see if we are correct. 0.6 parts per million. Good. So again, guys, did you need to know your work there? No, you needed to know how to read a graph. Which plant organ, the roots or shoots, are more sensitive to auxins? The roots, in this case here, as you can see. Look what's happening to the roots there, in that case there. Give an explanation to your answer. Roots are stimulated to grow at very low concentrations of auxins. In fact, a high concentration of auxins inhibits a root development. You must understand that the difference between geotropism and phototropism lies in this fact, that a high concentration of auxins in a stem is needed to stimulate growth. And in a root, very low concentration is really needed. If the concentration rises above that, the root development is inhibited. And that's how geotropism and phototropism are explained. Abraham.
All right, here's the last question talking about auxins. It's from Waddington.
Wellington, yeah?
Yeah, Waddington. He says, what are the uses of auxins by plants?
What are the uses of auxins by plants? First of all, we've mentioned two already: cell division, cell elongation. It stimulates fruit development, abscission of fruit. It stimulates growth in general for the plant. There's already 5 that I've given you. There are more than that, plenty. And we can then use it. We must understand, one is the functions of auxins for plant, and one is the industrial use or agricultural use. That means when we use it other than its normal. So how do we use it? We take auxin and we spray it on weeds. The weeds overgrow and they die. So that's one way. We can stimulate root cuttings. In other words, we cut the stem, we spray it, we put it in water with auxins, we leave it for a while, we'll see some roots growing there because it stimulates the root development. Those are some of the things.
All right, thank you very much. Well, Mindsetters, keep those questions coming on our Facebook page or else via our Twitter @LearnExtra. For now, we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, Mindsetters. Now we need your help as Mindset is looking to hire someone. If you know of anyone who could be interested in doing grade 10 to grade 12 content development, review, and video presentation, make sure that they go to mindset.co.za/learn/jobs. The closing date to apply is the 26th of August. So get the information rolling out there and let's help one another. For now, Aslam, back to you.
Thanks, AB. Guys, welcome back. Let's look at question 6. Like I said, we're going to choose as we're going along. We may leave 1 or 2 out because there may be a repetition of other questions. So we'll take it as it comes, all right? Question 6 says, study the following diagram and answer the questions that follow. Clearly, you know already by looking at this diagram, it's the motor neuron, and therefore it's dealing with the nervous system, peripheral nervous system as such. So the question's clearly there. Provide a caption. Well, I've given you that already. That's a great start. It's a motor neuron. In terms of its function, it's a motor neuron. In terms of its structure, because it has all these extensions, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there's many outgrowths from the cell body. That's the cell body, and there are many outgrowths from the cell body. So multipolar. Unipolar will have only one extension there. It's the same extension, just making a loop, and that's your cell body there. And a bipolar would have something like that. So there's one here and one separate one. They're not the same. Here, it's the same thing. It's an extension of the one. So that's the difference between a unipolar, a bipolar, and a multipolar. And obviously now we're going to discuss some other things about the motor neuron. Let's carry on with that. What is the function of the structure? So in other words, now in terms of function, what does a motor neuron do? A motor neuron conducts nerve impulses from where? Always notice when you're giving functions of motor, neuron, sensory neuron, interneuron, your answer will have to be from somewhere to somewhere. So from where? From the central nervous system, or the brain or the spinal cord, to the effectors of the body. From the central nervous system to the effectors. Okay? Central nervous system, you know, it's either the brain or the spinal cord. An effector is a muscle, a gland, or any other part in the body that responds to a stimulus. A sensory neuron, on the other hand, will transmit impulses from the receptors to the central nervous system. A receptor is that part in the body which senses the stimulus. In other words, which receives the stimulus and converts that stimulus into an impulse. See, name the parts labeled A and C and explain what effect will the absence of C have on this structure's function. Now, there's two questions there. And generally, sometimes these things slip through in a, this is taken from a question paper, right? So these things slip through. We try, however, the idea is we're telling examiners, and the advice given to examiners is, do not put things together. Because 9 out of 10, learners tend to leave one or the other out. But if you come across, just remember, there's a big word here, and it's not a big, it's only 3-letter, but it has big consequence. If you only do that part there, you're only going to get the 2 marks and you lose the 1 mark. If you do the other part and don't do the first part, you lose 2 marks, and so on. And this is a small question, so it's not too serious. But in the essay question, sometimes they add, and in that it's acceptable. You'll notice in the essay, they say, explain how this happens, also explain, and describe. So there's 3 things in that one question. So please, the bottom line, what I've been singing forever since I've been here, is look at the verb, the doing word. The doing word tells you what you need to do, obvious. All right, so it says label A and C. Let's go there back to the diagram. A, the structure here, would be dendrite. And C, that's the myelin sheath. Okay, and they want to know what happens if the myelin sheath is not there. Now, the myelin sheath, I wish I could have carried an electric cable. Let me get one quickly. Here's something that's conducting some sort of sound or whatever from one point to the other. You'll notice it has insulation around it, this plastic covering that it has. It's not bare wire, copper. Inside here, there's copper. Now, in our electrical appliances, like our heaters, our kettles, etc., why do we have those things there? We have that there so you and I can't get shocked. Because if we touch those bare wires, we're going to get shocked. But in our body, it's the same thing. Remember, our impulses are electrical in nature. Not as high charged as 240 volts, etc., but they have electrical nature. However, in our case, there's more importance because if we take away that, then there's no direction from where it's going to go, from A to B. It may leave the pathway. So transmission of the nerve impulse will be inhibited because the nerve has not been insulated. Sorry about that. Okay, not insulated. Now, what do we mean by this? That means there's no covering, and the nerve impulse will not get from point A to B. It's going to deviate. It's going to shoot all over. Now, interestingly enough, people that suffer from multiple sclerosis, if this is, let's go to our diagram. Why are we wasting time? Here's our diagram. We have an immune system in our body, antibodies, etc. An autoimmune disease means when your own immune system is fighting your own body. There's several in that line, leukemia, etc., etc. Now, multiple sclerosis, what happens is that your antibodies, they eat away that. So they're taking away the myelin sheath. So what happens is your nerve impulses are not being conducted properly, and therefore you start losing control of your voluntary actions. You can't walk properly, you may not be able to talk, you may not be able to see, and so on. You get swelling in that area, and it gets damaged in that way as well. So that's what we are talking about there. Right, disease of the nervous system can be Alzheimer's disease, attention deficit disorder, and depression. These are prescribed in your syllabus. Give 2 symptoms and suggest possible treatment for any one of those diseases or disorders provided. This is a straightforward question. Level 1, you needed to know your work here, and you start, and look at the way that we've ordered it. You start with 1, any one. Well, you only needed to do, what did the question say? 1, give 2 symptoms for any one of the diseases, right? So you take the 1, Alzheimer's disease, for example. Symptoms are memory loss, diminished intellectual capacity, you can't think properly, and disorientation and loss of judgment, because Alzheimer's, the cerebrum is actually wasting away. And if you follow the program we had earlier in the year, I showed you diagrams of how the wasting takes place, that the cerebrum in certain areas is getting smaller and smaller, so you can't remember things, you can't make judgment properly, etc. Treatment, to date, there's no drug found for successful treatment. Okay? There's no treatment for it. There's nothing we can do about it. We need to take care of those people because, for example, if it's a woman working in the kitchen, she may leave the stove on, the iron on, etc., and catastrophic incidents can happen because of that. Or we can look at attention deficit disorder, ADD, symptoms, inability to pay full attention, impatient, unable to wait, that's the same, shouting out answers before question is completed. This is in a classroom situation, you're going to get that type of a thing. So most important thing is your inability, your short concentration span. Okay? Treatment, treated with medication. Ritalin is one of the prescribed drugs for that. There's lots of controversy on either side. I have a friend who has a son that has ADD, and in that particular case, the Ritalin has worked excellently for that young man. He's a young man now in grade 11, going to school, successful in school, no issues, but he has to take the medication. Ritalin actually is the proper word there. Other than that, obviously, if the person is now jumpy and all overexcited, you can't give the person too much of sugar. The more sugar you get, you are feeding this ADD. And obviously, refined starches would obviously come back to sugar. Depression, and this, guys, I was just talking to my wife this morning, and she's talking about somebody that's lost a lot of things in business, etc. Recently, some deal didn't go through, and the man is in total depression. Guys, I'll tell you a story about that just now. Symptoms, sleep disturbances. I have sleep disturbances, but I'm not depressed. I hope not anyway. Feeling dejected. And we start moving towards suicidal tendencies. So it's a serious thing, this depression, guys. And teenagers lean more to this because you're in that stage where you so-called, Abraham, fall in love, or I would say infatuated, and you think that without that person, life can't go on, you know. It's only when you grow older and you realize, hey, there were many of those along the way, and now I'm happy and I'm carrying on with my life. So there's lots of things, maybe a failing in an exam, whatever it is, whatever disappointment it is. Guys, remember, whatever it is, there are solutions, there are people to talk to. And I read something interesting this morning, a conversation with a person and God. So he's telling God, why did you do this to me today? First of all, in the morning, I got up late. Secondly, my tea was cold. When I was in a car, I got a traffic fine.
Sure.
Or rather, my car didn't start. And so on and so on. So he's listing all these things. So God said, okay, you done? Let me tell you, in the morning, you needed a few minutes extra sleep. So I decided to let you sleep for that time.
Oversleep.
Secondly, your tea was cold because there was a problem with the microwave. If you put your tea into that microwave, the microwave would have caused a short in the house.
Sure.
Thirdly, your car wouldn't start. There was a drunk driver on the road. And if you left earlier, he would have killed you. He said, my cell phone didn't work. He says, yes, you are going to talk to a lawyer of the opposite party that you have a court case with, and whatever you were going to tell him, he was going to lie about it. So I didn't make you make that call because I saved you.
Sure. Wow.
So, I mean, imagine somebody tell you all this and now you complain, why did you make, and you're getting this here.
It's all in not knowing and appreciating what life has to offer.
And what is it? There's always a better plan. Certain things happen for a reason. For a reason. Always take that. If you take it in that fold, that accept what is good and what is bad, and take it as a learning experience you shouldn't have from. But teenagers, especially you guys that are writing exam, this is the critical time when you get depressed because you feel, hey, this is too much work, I'm not going to manage, I'm going to die, I'll never pass, etc., etc. Guys, take a deep breath, take a walk. If you have to round the block, talk to somebody. Talk to somebody. Talk to your friend, talk to your mother, talk to your father. And if you need counseling, if it's that serious, get the counseling. Please, please, please. And at this time, most important, sleep well, eat well, and proper planning prevents poor performance. You can't want to learn the whole math syllabus tonight for tomorrow. That's going to lead to depression and anxiety. So stay away from those things. Next question is on the endocrine system. Let me just skip that. I'll come back to that, sorry. Right, I want to do something still on the nervous system. This one is on the ear. They give you a diagram of the human ear there, A to G. And the questions are, identify the parts labeled D and G. D, there you go, semi-circular, let me write that here. Semi-circular canals. And G, the eustachian tube. I like this question taken from Free State June exam this year. And just to check whether I've got my story right, there you go, I'm right, I get full marks. List the names of the membranes that vibrate when sound is being transmitted in the ear. That one is straightforward. It's the tympanic membrane of the eardrum and the oval window. Those are the ones that send vibrations through. Is part E a sensory, motor, or mixed nerve? Give a reason for your answer. Nice mix to the question here. Part E, is it a sensory, motor, or mixed nerve? Let's see what the answer says. It is a sensory neuron. Why? Because, as I said earlier, it's carrying impulse from the receptor to the brain, which forms part of the central nervous system. Identify, briefly explain the effect it will have on a person if part E gets damaged in an operation. Part E, the sensory neuron, if something happens in an operation, what's going to happen to this person? It's very clear. Because the auditory nerve, and remember part E is a combination now. Part E is a combination. It's coming from the semicircular canals and from there. So it is a branch of the vestibular nerve and the auditory nerve. One part of it, the vestibular nerve goes, or equilibrium nerve goes to the cerebellum, and the other part goes to the cerebrum. Now look at the answer. Impulse to both the cerebrum and the cerebellum of the brain. Injury to this structure will lead to deafness. The person won't be able to hear, obviously, because that's the function of the sensory neuron from the cochlea. And lose balance because the sacculus, utriculus, semicircular canals, they control balance. So in that case, the person will have issues with that. The last question, why would you advise a hunter to keep his/her mouth slightly open when firing a shot with a heavy rifle or heavy caliber rifle? So in other words, he's shooting the heavy caliber, why must he keep his mouth slightly open? Very simple, it's about the eustachian tube. The shot from the rifle causes pressure on the tympanic membrane. Opening of the mouth helps to balance the pressure on the inside of the tympanic membrane through the eustachian tube. And this will prevent damage to the eardrum. Abram.
Thank you so much, Aslam. A big shout out to Dennis Daniso, all the way from Malawi, saying, I'm tuning in on your program and I love it so much, especially life sciences. To all the mindsetters that are watching, also a big shout out to you. But don't move, we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, Mindsetters. Now, a quick reminder that I need to tell you is that on our Facebook page, we are actually posting the questions, so you can work through with this and download the questions, take them as pictures also on Facebook page if you can't download them on our notes. That's it, Aslam.
Oh, that's it?
Yes.
Oh, that was quick, AB. Any questions?
I have some plenty of questions for
Let's
you.
take the questions first, I think.
You think so?
Yeah, always better.
All right, can I just get ready? As I get ready,
Okay, can I carry on first?
please.
All right, when you get ready, after this question, we'll take the questions. All right, Mindsetters, the next question, welcome back, by the way. The next question deals with the eye. Study the graph below showing the number of photoreceptors at different distances across the retina and answer the questions that follow. Okay, so here's a graph. Number of photoreceptors times 1,000. Distance across the retina. This is the retina. Distance across the retina, different places in the retina, and there's a number of receptors we find there. Name the region of the retina at the point labeled X. Now, let's look at the number of photoreceptors there. X, 0. Which part of the retina has no photoreceptors? Easy. The blind spot. Give a reason for your answer. I just gave it to you. There are no photoreceptors. How many cones are present at the point labeled X on the retina? Now, very simple. We said here number of photoreceptors are 0. So photoreceptors include rods and cones. So at X, if there were no photoreceptors, it should be 0. Which point on the graph, X, Y, or Z, is the position of the blind spot? Again, this question leads to the first question there, so I'm not even going to answer that one because it's a repetition. We've already said that that's the blind spot. We can't ask that again in that particular case. Okay, so if we asked another question, for example, Z, this one here, what is Z? Or what is this X? I'm wrong, I am wrong, guys. I am wrong, I am totally wrong. So let's go back. Sorry about that, guys. Let's go back. That shows when you do not look at the graph properly the first time. You make a mistake. Let's go back to it. Let's look at this again. So it says here, look at this, X, there's no rods, but there's plenty cones in this particular case. I read it wrong. I just saw the X there and I thought it was nothing there. So name the region of the retina at label X. That would be the yellow spot. So can you see, guys, if you rush your work, even I can make that mistake, and I'm doing this over and over and over again. I'm teaching the same thing, and I can make the mistake, and I'm teaching you how to answer questions, and I'm doing the same things that I'm not supposed to do.
You're human after all.
That's right. But the lesson to learn from that is read very carefully. Now the question says, give a reason for your answer there. Now the answer changes to, there are no rods and many cones. How many cones are present at the point labeled X on the retina? Again, ours was wrong. That's why we had to go back to it. Now here you just needed to read, there's X. Go across there, 160 times 1,000, times 1,000. So it's 160,000. 160,000. Notice the reason for the 1,000, because you can't say 160 because that's incorrect. It's times 1,000. The units are given to you there, times 1,000. Which point on the graph, X, Y, or Z, is the position of the blind spot? Now that answer changes. Explain your answer. Right, now we need to go back to the graph and look where there is no rods and no cones. And that would be there. Look, there's no cones and there are no rods. Rods are also 0, and cones are also 0. So the answer is point Z. And why? No rods and cones. Nice question to test your understanding about the yellow spot and the blind spot. Just understand this. The blind spot is that part of the eye. If an image falls on that spot, you and I can't see it. Why? Because there's no photoreceptors there. There are no rods, there are no cones. That's why we can't see it. A youngster I was helping now recently says his teacher told him that the blind spot is a spot when an image falls there, you get blind. No, that's totally incorrect. You can't get blind because of that. That's called a blind spot because you cannot see the image. You notice in motor cars they have a little line. The new cars have a line, and the mirror below that line, that portion below the line is to make sure that the image that's on your blind spot you can see. Because imagine you're driving on a highway and you want to switch lanes. If that image of the car behind you falls on your blind spot, you can't see it. So you turn and bang, there you make an accident. So the purpose of that blind spot mirror is to redirect that particular car. So you're seeing both now. You're seeing on the top the normal mirror and the blind spot mirror. So if that car is behind you, and you notice when you're doing your license test, one of the things they teach you is that when you are switching lanes, apart from looking in the mirror, you must turn your head to the side so that you can see anything coming from the sides. That's very important on the highway. Very, very, very common cause for bumper bashing and accidents on the highway. And remember, people drive quite fast on the highways. Okay, so that answers that question there. Also remember that the yellow spot has many cones, and that is why you see much clearer, because cones give us very clear vision. So you must be able to see that as well. Good. Abraham, you got those questions?
Yes, I have.
You ready for me?
Yes.
I'm ready for you.
All right, here's the first one from Nicole Nix Diolala. Diolala says, what type of essay questions could we be asked on? TSH or the menstrual cycle?
Okay, will we keep that one in the parking bay?
All right.
We'll deal with that when I deal with essays just now, right?
Okay, here's another one. I think also this one, it will need you to deal with the essay part. Here's another one from Siche. Siche says, can you clarify on hepatotropism?
Apical tropism.
No, hepatotropism.
Hepatotropism?
Yes.
Let me come and see what you're talking about. Hepatotropism.
Mm-hmm.
No idea. Okay,
Maybe
we'll
Sita
come
can
back to
clarify
it.
us.
Tell her
and
to
then
just where she came on, give us the context. Any more?
okay, here's another one. Can you explain the events occurring in the ovary?
Just all right, just hold on that. For our syllabus, by the way, guys, you only need to know phototropism and geotropism. There are others. There's thigmotropism, that's for touch, hydrotropism for water, just to know the terminology. The other one we'll check just now.
All right, here's Abdullah again saying, Mr. Aslam, could you explain the movement of the nerve impulse across synapse?
Okay, across the synapse, we'll come through that just now as well as we answer questions. But just keep those questions in our bank that we know. Okay, so most of your questions we will deal with towards the end, okay? But we just needed to know what we're getting so we can take it from there. All right, I'm going to go slightly back. Remember I told you we're skipping that one part. That's the part we're going back to now. So we've done a bit on the nervous system. Remember, we haven't touched much on the eye. We've done the ear this time. And in exams, they can test the eye only, the ear and the eye and the brain. It all depends on the examiners. Later on, next year's paper will be slightly different because there are set number of marks for each section. Now it's a little bit different. They can ask anyway. Now we've done the nervous system. So in terms of the eye, what must you know? The ear we've done, know the diagram, know how we hear. We didn't even test that, and how we balance. In the eye, we must know the structure of the eye, the function of the different parts, and more importantly in the eye, we must know the pupillary mechanism and accommodation. That means accommodation to see far and near, and the pupillary mechanism to see when it's bright and when it's dim. So those are some of the issues and angles that you can look at. We'll talk about that just now. Now we're going to move on to the human endocrine system. And the question says, study the diagram below, which shows some endocrine glands in the human body. Human endocrine system, there's the diagram. From the diagram, provide the letter and name of the gland, which secretion is responsible for each of the following. Normal growth of the skeleton. normal growth of the skeleton, and this one here would usually be A, hypophysis. Now notice here, the question said letter and the name. So you need to give both. So it's a hypophysis of pituitary gland, the letter is A. It's straightforward, I'm not going to discuss. Which one causes dilation of the blood vessels of the brain and muscles? That would be definitely E. E, the adrenal gland. Remember, adrenaline causes dilation of the blood vessels of the brain and the muscles. Why? Because it prepares us for emergencies, and the brain is considered to be an important organ in this, a strategic organ, and the muscles are needed to deal with whatever you're doing. Next one says, name the hormone referred to in A1. In other words, this gland that you, A1, name the hormone referred to. Okay, A1 is this one here. What is the hormone that causes a growth? It would be, yes, growth hormone, or STH. Please, guys, another name for growth hormone is called STH. I prefer you do not use it because it's very easy to confuse STH with TSH, right? STH, somatotropic hormone or growth hormone, and TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. They are totally different hormones, so please be careful with that one. State 3 characteristics of hormones. That's very straightforward. Let's look at it. You should know this. Hormones are fairly stable chemical messengers. Some hormones are proteins. They stimulate or inhibit a target organ. They are very effective and therefore needed only in small amounts. They are produced by ductless glands and transported in the blood. Okay. Explain the mechanism that operates between A and B. Now we must obviously then name A and B first, isn't it? A is the pituitary. You've done that in an earlier question. And B is the thyroid gland. And the mechanism between these two is known as the, yes, negative feedback mechanism. Famous question, and while we're talking about that, the question earlier was about the essay. In an essay question I've seen twice already in the last 3 years, the question dealt with the functions of adrenaline and the negative feedback between thyroid gland and the pituitary gland. To add to that, they can also add the negative feedback mechanism and thyroid disorders. That gives you a whole essay. They could then leave the thyroid gland. They can go to the insulin. There's negative feedback also with insulin. Insulin, glucagon. What happens when you have too much sugar? What happens when you have too little sugar? And then ask you to add. The end part would be, how do we manage diabetes? So those are already 2 essays that I've given you in that section.
While you're still on that, Aslam,
yes, sir.
You actually reminded me of a question from Kumayingi. He's been asking this question. Please explain the negative feedback. I'm really lost.
Good, there we are. This question is going to answer. Your prayers have been answered. You should have asked for $1 million. You should have asked for $1 million.
It's your lucky day.
You should have a lucky day. So they're saying explain that mechanism. Now let's explain it. The amount of thyroxine is secreted in the blood determines its level of secretion later on. All right? A high level of thyroxine inhibits the reproduction of TSH and thyroid stimulation decrease. Therefore, less thyroxine is produced and the level of thyroxine is controlled. That is just a general answer. Now, let's get an explanation for that. This negative feedback. So, in terms of negative feedback, it's a mechanism where the stimulus results in an opposite response. In terms of thyroid gland and pituitary gland, in terms of that, this is the situation. If this, let's use another color. If this is normal thyroxine, so obviously this would be the same. And if for some reason the thyroxine level rises above normal, too much thyroxine, what's going to happen? This is picked up by the pituitary gland. So the control center, remember for any coordination system, there must be a stimulus, there must be a control center, and there must be a response. These are the three things. Stimulus is what causes the change. The control center what receives the message, and the response is what do you do about it. So the pituitary gland is the control center. What does it do? It secretes less TSH, less thyroid stimulating hormone. So that means the thyroid gland is going to be stimulated less, and therefore less stimulating thyroid. And if it's stimulated less, it's going to secrete less thyroxine. And if it secretes less thyroxine, the thyroxine level comes back to normal. And if we have to go the other way, if for some reason it drops below normal, too little thyroxine, again the control center doesn't change because it is the same control center, pituitary gland. But now the response is going to change. What does it do? It secretes more. And you can't say it secretes TSH. You must use the word more or less because that is the key. It's secreting TSH all the time. So more TSH, and this TSH then will stimulate the thyroid gland more, and therefore the thyroid gland will secrete more thyroxine. And this results in the thyroxine level coming back to normal. Now guys, this is the key way to learn how a negative feedback mechanism works. So you can see the picture. Remember, think of a seesaw in the park. If somebody heavy is sitting on this side, this is what's going to happen. The guy here is going to be sitting in the sky, and if the guy jumps down, this guy is in trouble. But if they are equal, then it comes down. Homeostasis, the job of homeostasis is to maintain a constant internal environment, and that is to bring back to normal. It must come back to normal. If it goes up, it must come back to normal. But look at the important thing. What is the stimulus? Let's see if I can. Yeah, good. What is the stimulus? Rise above normal. What is the response? Less thyroxine. That keys in with what I said before. The stimulus, opposite response. There was too much, now there's less. There was too little, now there's more. I hope that helps you guys. Ebi.
Thank you so much. You know, you reminded me of what Matsobane Miniti4 has just posted. He asked this question, Aslam. Did you know that most hormones are proteins while some are steroids?
That's right.
Did you know?
100%. Yes, I did.
All right. Well, I must say that Matsobane has been keeping me entertained on the page with some nice facts. And I just want to salute you as a mindsetter of the day for today. Otherwise, see you after the break. Awesome, beautiful, handsome, and intelligent mindsetters. Welcome back. We're still learning more right here on Learn Extra Live on a Saturday with AB and Aslam. Here are some questions that we have for you, Aslam.
Yeah.
I have a first one from Bongani Tameng. Bongani says, explain accommodation for me, please.
All right.
Captured. And here's another one from Refilwe Deliwe. Refilwe actually is from all the way from Limpopo, and she's been watching our show. And yeah, that's what you posted earlier on, saying, I watch your show all the way from Limpopo and just want to say that your show helps me a lot. Thank you very much and keep up the good work. But the question is, can you please help me? How does a reflex arc and reflex action work?
All right.
All right, and so our usual suspect says, how is aldosterone and adrenaline suitable for the adaptation?
Aldosterone and?
Adrenaline. Yes.
They suitable
for the adaptation.
Okay.
Last one.
Yeah.
Okay. Last one from Mutsobane again. Hormones are used to be transported to target organs. So how can one define a target organ as?
Okay, we're going to take two now, and we'll take two at the end if we have time.
No problem.
This one was from who again? Aldosterone, adrenaline.
That's from Sovo.
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 Aldosterone and adrenaline are hormones. They are not structures. When we talk of suitability for adaptation, or to suitability and adaptation, same thing. we ask is, how is a part adapted for its function? How is an organ, how is a structure suited for its function? Same thing. Now, aldosterone and adrenaline are hormones. So they are chemical substances, they're not structures. We would then go into the kidney, but that's not needed for your studies. If we have to explain how the kidney is suited for its function, that's a different story altogether. So don't stress about that. You can't be asked a question on that, right? That's the one. And the one on target organs, we always say that a hormone is secreted in one area and it acts on a target organ. The target organ is the organ which brings about the response. For example, if, for example, let's say for the insulin, or let's take sugar levels are high. If the sugar levels are high, then insulin is secreted where? In the pancreas. But it doesn't work in the pancreas. It goes in the blood and goes to the liver. And in the liver, the excess glucose is converted to glycogen. So the liver is the target organ. So the target organ is that organ where the hormone brings about a response. Good? We move on.
Yes.
Okay, that one there, we've covered that. We've covered, I'm going again, I'm shuffling again, guys. Just bear with me. Right, I'm going to go to human reproduction. Study the diagram below of a developing embryo in the uterus. Use the diagram to answer the questions that follow. Okay, identify the parts labeled A, B, and D. And they are the placenta, umbilical cord, and that's the placenta. I like this yellow. And B, that's the cord. And D, that's around. Notice there are two membranes, one and this one inside. That the inside one is the amnion. Good. The structure labeled B contains an artery and a vein. Tabulate two differences in the this is a lovely question. They like to ask the difference between the umbilical artery and the umbilical vein. Okay? And the answer is very clear. Umbilical artery has a high carbon dioxide levels, whereas the umbilical vein has low carbon dioxide levels. The umbilical artery has low oxygen levels, and umbilical vein will have high oxygen levels. The umbilical artery will be rich in wastes such as urea, whereas umbilical vein will be low in those wastes. Umbilical artery will be low in nutrients, and the umbilical vein is high in nutrients. Important to understand that the umbilical vein is the vein that is taking the necessary stuff from the placenta to the baby, or to the fetus, sorry. Whereas the umbilical artery is the artery that takes the blood from the fetus to the placenta, from where it must be gotten rid of. So this one is opposite to our body. In our body, arteries normally carry the useful substance, the oxygen and so on. But in umbilical artery and umbilical vein, it's switched compared to the norm. Structure G is a mucus plug that forms in the cervix during pregnancy. There you have this one here. All right, a mucus plug there. Why is this plug formed? It's obvious, it's for protection. It blocks the opening in the cervix so that bacteria cannot enter the uterus and harm the baby. It's a protective filter for the baby. Over and above what else? The amnion, the chorion, but in other, notice that this whole body is designed to protect the developing fetus. Okay, in terms of that, we've just touched on reproduction here in this question. They can ask you questions on, in reproduction, they can ask you questions on the male structure, female structure. They can talk about spermatogenesis, etc., etc., etc. They can also talk about the hormones and the cycles in the female. They can talk about pregnancy. They can talk about birth. They can talk about STIs. Now notice STIs will go to both. They can talk about infertility, also to both, etc. And also contraception. These are other things that you need to know in reproduction. And obviously, in an hour-and-a-half session, we can't cover all the questions. We are trying to touch on all the sections. This question here is on environment. Succession is a series of environmental changes that occurs in all ecosystems. In the diagram below, an ecosystem had passed through 4 stages. Study the diagram and answer the questions that follow. So you have pond A, pond B, pond C, and pond D. Write the letters of the ponds in order from the youngest pioneer community to the oldest. So succession is when we have this piece of bare land, and over time it develops to a huge, very biodiverse ecosystem. So this is what you look at. So the pioneer will be when it's quite bare. So if we're looking at that, it would be obviously B. So B should be our first here in this case. Remember, it's not the original, but it has the least amount. From B, we can then go to C, and then to A, and lastly, you can see it's now very diverse here with lots of other things there. So B, C, A, D would be our order. Some amphibians and crayfish can withstand periods of dryness by burying themselves in the mud. In which ponds would they survive? Would they survive there? Would they survive here? There. This one here, the mud is very little. Here, yes, they can, and here they can. So it's A and D. That's now not, you didn't have to know science to do that. Black bass and bluegill fish types make their nests on sandy bottoms. In which pond would you find black bass and bluegill fish types make their nests on sandy bottoms? Again, it could be A, here, B, C, and D. A, C, and D. More these two. To the above diagram, illustrate primary or secondary succession. It started with something here, so it would be secondary succession. Good. Can we take those questions now, Abraham?
Yes, you have them pegged there. Okay, one on reflex. You remember that one?
Okay, let's do the reflex one quickly. Here's it. We got it here,
there.
right? Reflex action. First of all, reflex action is a quick automatic response to a stimulus. All right? So what does that mean? If something has happened to you, you need to react without thinking about it. And here you need to talk about the pathway. And when talking about the pathway, we're talking about the reflex arc. This is the action, what happens. And the pathway is the arc. And you talk of a stimulus, whatever stimulus you burn in your hand, it goes to a sensory neuron. The sensory neuron then goes to the spinal cord. I'm skipping a few steps, where it meets with an interneuron, which makes a synapse with a motor neuron, which then goes to an effector, and we have a response. You'll notice it starts with a stimulus. You'll have a receptor first, obviously. The receptor is feeling the heat, goes to the spinal cord with a sensory neuron. Before going to the brain to think about, you can't keep your hand there and say, I think I'm burning. What shall I do, Abraham? By the time you finish, you'll be burnt out. So you pull your hand without thinking about it. This is a reflex action. And I think, guys, that's all we can explain there. There's more details about this, but keep posting your questions. Help each other on the site. And I'm hoping you all the best for this trial exam. Keep well and study, 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 study.
Thank you so much, Mr. Aslam. We ended with that, a great quote which says the greatest strategy in life, it is not having goals to reach, but it lies on not having any goals to reach. So if you have goals, make sure that you plan towards those goals. But from us, we just want to say thank you very much. Keep those questions coming and let's interact over Facebook. We love you and wish you nothing else but the best as you're going to be writing. Peace.